maybe we'd be better off without money. Is that not one of the things that instills fear in us, that when you have family, you have responsibility? How can you step out and follow your free will when you have all these responsibilities and you're going to run down a path of poverty, probably, for all the people who you're responsible for?
Well, we need to understand that it's our emotions that create our lack at any one point in time. So if I take full personal responsibility for my life, I will realise that if I do not have money, in other words, the necessities to live, it's not because I'm following my desires, but rather because I have emotions within me that cause me to reject the funds needed to follow my desires. So if I am willing to feel those emotions, I will actually get to a point where I receive money. If money is what is the way in which I can obtain things to live. Now, in the future, money may not be the way that we obtain things to live, but even if it is, as long as I address the emotion that I feel towards money, I will always finish up receiving it, whether it matters to me or not. Do you understand?
I don't know.
You definitely don't understand, and that's okay.
No, I don't know if I understand.
Yeah, that's okay. If I can explain, give you an example in my own life. When I started going around the world teaching people, I had money that I had created myself through business and through development, property development, yes? And in the first 5 years of my travelling around with people, I spent all of that money. All the money that I obtained, I sold my property and I used the profits from my property to pay for me to go travelling and so forth, and I spent that, and then I spent it giving away books or DVDs or other things like so. And in fact, I paid for other people even to do the same thing. That's one of the ways I gave away this money. But in the end, I ended up with no money. Why did I end up with no money? Because I had some emotions I had to work through about money. Now, once I started working my way through the emotions, I found I had some pretty big emotions about money. Some of them were associated with my first century existence and my death even, that I had to work my way through emotionally. I also had some emotions regarding this life and a feeling of rebellion that I had inside of myself that I recognised about money, not wanting money to be a part of the commodity that the world uses. And so I had anger about that I had to address. And then I had some sadness about that and grief, personal grief that I had to address. Once I let go of all of those things emotionally, I started receiving donations from people who just gave me money. Now, I didn't do anything different. I still went around teaching people and still did all the same things, but now I was receiving money from people so that I could do it. Up until that point, I didn't receive any money from anybody to do it. Does that make sense? I had to actually process something emotionally that caused my soul to reject money before the money would come to me. And this is something that we don't understand about responsibility. We are all responsible for our own creations once we become an adult. If we have a lack of money, it's not because of anything else. It's not because of the social system. It's not because of the environment we live in. It's not because there's no work. It's not any of those things. It's something to do with an emotion inside of our soul that we need to address. When we address it, the situation will change. Now, I've seen this happen over and over and over again in my own life. It's something I practice, as Mary knows, every single moment of my life, right? But in the beginning, I didn't do that. In the beginning, I just thought, why isn't this happening? You know, I'm trying to do good here. Why isn't any money coming along? You know, like that kind of thing. Not realizing that it was my own creation, something that I had to change within me that would change the attraction, that would bring me different things. Once I addressed those things emotionally, then I had different things come, but only then, not before then. Before then, I did all my hardest and spent all this money that I'd previously earned using different techniques and so forth, And I ended up with very little money left, and certainly not enough money to live week by week. And then I had to address the emotion at last because I had none, and I had to work through why I had none for the first time. Up until then, I had money because I worked hard, and like I used to work sometimes 18 to 20 hours a day, and sometimes over 100 hours a week plus, generally, every single week. And so naturally that drew me money, but it didn't draw me much else. I had no other time to do anything I wanted and no other time to do anything I loved, and I was totally abdicated my will to the system that gave money. Once I stopped doing that, that system didn't give me money anymore, and I had to work out why. And I found it was a soul, it was an emotional thing inside of me that attracted that lack. Yeah? When you address that emotionally, now things will change. Only then. It won't happen before then. And you can work hard and you might get some money, but until you deal with the emotions inside of yourself, you will not be able to embrace your desires and passions and also receive money doing it. So this is where it's really good for us all to think about too. We could embrace our desires and passions, and the instant you do that, many of you will instantly find you don't have enough money. Does that make sense?
It happened just before coming here.
Yeah, okay. And in that moment, you can then realise, well, hang on a sec, there's something inside of me that creates this lack. If I address the emotion inside of me that creates the lack, then I will also receive money by following my passions and desires. Now, there's been many people who are now quite famous and rich in the world who have got lots of money as a result of following their desires and passions only. And initially they were broke and they had to deal with their emotions about being broke. They went through many feelings. You talk to many of these people who are now rich, you'll find that the ones that are not working hard, that money seems to come to them quite easily just by following their passions and desires, every single one of them went through a space where they had no money. Every single one of them. And they had to address it emotionally. They had to feel it. And when they felt it, when they dealt with that emotionally, then they still stayed on their passion and desire. They still did what they wanted to do, but now they received money while they were doing it. Every single person that I've spoken to has been
So
like
it's just a case of getting through that moment of the rent's overdue, I'm going to stay on this track, it'll happen. That then deals with the emotion?
No.
Is it the fear is the first one you have to deal with?
The fear, and the fear of having nothing, of course, but under the fear is the grief. But there may be also, for a lot of people, there's rage. There's rage at the system of money inside of many of us. Many of you, when you get a bill, how do you feel? It's not like, oh, isn't this a beautiful bill?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for providing my
I'd love to
electricity.
give that money away.
I would love to give that money to that person. Most of us don't feel that, do we? What do we feel? If we're honest, we feel, oh, why is that so much? Why is electricity, something that's essential for me now, living in where we live, so much money, and we complain and we get bitter. These are all the emotions that are preventing money from coming to us, that have now been triggered by the reception of this bill. And I have the ability in this moment to find them and feel them, or I can skip over it and say, everything's going to be all right. Now, I call that skipping over.
Yeah.
It might not be all right. You may be destitute. Feel that.
Oh, okay.
You see?
Fake it till you make it.
No, don't
fake it. Don't fake it. Give
freak
up.
out.
If you need to freak out, freak out. Feel the feelings and then feel what's underneath them. Underneath them is usually there's a lot of anger that we have about this system we live in. Many of us are very angry with how the monetary system works. Many of us, you think about your day-to-day life, how you feel when you get a bill that you cannot pay. How do you feel then? Don't you feel terrified, many of you? Feel terrified that you've now got a bill that you cannot pay. So there's a lot of fear of this system as well. Fear, anger, two very strong preventions of having money come into your life. Right? And then you might find there's grief. You see, many of us had a childhood where mother and father argued about money all the time. we don't even see money as having money or having a lack of it as anybody being able to love anymore. We almost feel like love is dependent upon whether we're financially secure or not. Many of us believe this because of our childhood. Because in our childhood, we had mum and dad fighting about money all the time. No love in that place. And so whenever we think about money, we think of arguments. And lo and behold, in our own life, often there's arguments whenever we think about money or whenever we've engaged with money. And so we have all of these emotions involved that unless we release them, we will not change the issue. We will still have a lack in our lives as a result of these emotions. But when you deal with the anger, and when I say deal with it, you feel it. You need to feel it and embrace it. Embrace it. Feel the fear, embrace it. Allow yourself to grieve. So when you get that bill you cannot pay, many of you feel like crying, but you don't let yourself do it. Right? But if you let yourself do it, you'll be surprised what happens after that. Yes? But we don't let ourselves do it because we go, oh, it's not growing up to cry about a bill. It's not growing up to cry about, not having enough. We've got to go out and create more. So we become more self-reliant, and we're also more resistive to our emotions. We're less inclined to feel them. When we feel them, we have the possibility of changing everything. Yeah. Very important to understand that. Yeah. Sarah?
So you just reminded me of something that happened when I was a student and didn't have much money, and I got pulled over for speeding, and the guy went to write a ticket, and I just started to cry because I just didn't have the money. And he was like, "Oh, all right," and he changed the ticket. So he said he started writing it, otherwise he would have ripped it up. But he changed it so it was a much cheaper fine. Like, just like that. But just because I seriously was so upset. I was like, I don't have any money. Yeah. So
and it's amazing like that. When you embrace the emotion, the actual emotion you feel, not the anger, not the anger or the fear, but the actual feeling, which is, what am I going to do? This terrible feeling of, like, all sorts of emotions come, all related to grief generally. When you embrace that grieving emotion, you heal something in yourself, and right at that same instant, you change what can happen. Right at that instant.
Yeah.
What happens changes. And when you embrace your tears in a public setting, and it's true tears, not fake.
Not manipulated.
I was sad.
When you embrace you change what happens around you very, very rapidly. Yes? Most of us are totally unwilling to do that. So because we want to maintain a facade, we want to be nice and calm, we want to give the impression that everything's fine when it's not, and so we feel embarrassed or humiliated or some other thing and then we don't allow ourselves to feel the grief that we actually need to feel, and then nothing changes, and things just get harder. That's exactly what happens. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. It's very important to understand that our soul creates everything, not externals. Our soul creates everything. When we're an adult, our soul creates everything. When we're a child, it's our parent's soul that creates everything. You understand? And as we grow, we change from our parent's soul creating everything to our own soul creating everything. So by the time we're an adult like we are, our soul is now creating. Every negative experience I'm having right now, my soul creates. Every positive experience I have right now, my soul creates. If I allow myself to embrace the process emotionally, I can heal the negative experiences, and then every experience my soul creates can only be positive. Now, most of us don't trust that. So what we do instead is we go, I don't trust that. That's a stupid idea. Who thought of that crazy idea? And what we do instead is we go, no, the only thing that's going to change anything is if I work hard to change it. Now, many of you have already tried working hard, and did it work as well as you thought it should? For many of you, it hasn't, right? Worked as well as you thought. And the reason why is because your own soul is working against the hard work that you're doing. Do you understand? Your own emotions are working against what you're trying to achieve. So many of you think that by going to work 5 days a week, you're creating money. How many of you have money that you're happy with? Did it create money for you, this going to work 5 days a week? Did it create amount of money that you desired? Not as much as you thought, probably. Now, I know many people, and at one point in my life I was in the same position, and I am now in the same position, where that work very little in fact, I don't work at all anymore. Like for a person, I just go around doing these free things all the time. That's all I do. And yet I've got enough money. So how did that happen? Well, it happened by releasing the emotions that I had to release to create that. That's how it happened. By putting into practice what I'm teaching you. That's how it happened. Not by me working very, very hard. There was a time when I worked very, very hard. As I said, 100 hours a week plus every single week. Didn't have a holiday for nearly 7 years during that time. 100 hours a week, every week, no holidays, 7 years. And I created a degree of wealth, but as soon as I embraced my passion and desire, what happened to it all? Within 3 years, 4 years, it was all gone. It was all gone. And that tells me that I hadn't dealt with the emotion. I had to work hard, and at the same time my soul was repelling. If I had worked hard and my soul was not repelling, imagine how much I could have created. A huge amount, if I wanted to.